In a political career carefully built on discipline, caution, and calculated diplomacy, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa has rarely been known for reckless public statements. His persona as a measured, pragmatic leader has helped him navigate the stormy waters of South Africa's internal politics while balancing the demands of regional diplomacy. But in a surprising twist that has sent shockwaves through both Pretoria and Harare, Ramaphosa's off-the-cuff remarks about Zimbabwe, widely described as a stupid blunder by critics, have left analysts and citizens questioning his judgment, motives, and ability to manage sensitive cross-border relations. The incident unfolded during what was meant to be a routine engagement on regional cooperation and economic stability. Ramaphosa, in his effort to address concerns about South Africa's trajectory, reportedly contrasted his country's challenges with Zimbabwe's long-standing economic crisis, using Zimbabwe as an example of what South Africa must avoid becoming. While the president may have intended to reassure his domestic audience, the phrasing and context carried a dismissive undertone that many interpreted as an insult directed at Zimbabwe's leadership and people. The reaction was swift and severe. Zimbabwean officials wasted no time condemning the remarks, branding them not only undiplomatic but also an affront to a nation with which South Africa shares deep historical, political, and economic ties. Commentators on both sides of the border noted that the words came at a particularly delicate moment, with Zimbabwe still struggling under sanctions, economic instability, and an ongoing battle to maintain legitimacy on the international stage. For Zimbabweans who already feel unfairly criticized and marginalized by global narratives, Ramaphosa's words struck a raw nerve. But perhaps even more intriguing than the diplomatic fallout is the fact that Ramaphosa, known for his careful messaging, allowed himself to stumble so publicly. Many South Africans immediately began speculating, was this an uncharacteristic slip of the tongue, a calculated jab at Harare, or a symptom of mounting domestic pressure pushing him to appear tough? Inside South Africa, Ramaphosa has been under immense strain. The energy crisis continues to cripple economic growth, unemployment remains stubbornly high, and the ruling African National Congress (ANC) faces rising public discontent. With opposition parties gaining traction ahead of the next election cycle, Ramaphosa may have felt compelled to draw contrasts between South Africa and its neighbors, emphasizing that the country, despite its challenges, is not sliding toward collapse. But in doing so, he appears to have underestimated how his words would reverberate regionally. Observers also point out the irony of Ramaphosa's misstep. For years, he has styled himself as a mediator in Zimbabwean affairs, often positioning South Africa as a neutral but supportive partner. He has chaired discussions at the Southern African Development Community (SADC) level, called for the lifting of sanctions, and presented himself as a bridge builder. This sudden departure from diplomatic language risks undoing much of that work, raising questions about his consistency and reliability. Political analysts in Harare argue that the timing of the comment is particularly damaging. Zimbabwe's leadership, under intense pressure to project stability, cannot afford to appear belittled by its southern neighbor. In retaliation, some Zimbabwean officials hinted at revisiting certain bilateral agreements, while state media painted Ramaphosa as hypocritical, pointing to South Africa's own problems with corruption, crime, and governance failures. In effect, what may have been a single poorly chosen remark has opened the door for long-standing frustrations to resurface in public discourse. Back home, the fallout has also been significant. Opposition leaders in South Africa seized on the blunder as further evidence that Ramaphosa is losing his grip. Julius Malema of the Economic Freedom Fighters, EFF, for example, wasted no time lambasting the president, accusing him of disrespecting fellow Africans while failing to address his own country's dire issues. The Democratic Alliance, DA, similarly pointed to the controversy as another diplomatic misstep, arguing that South Africa's foreign policy is increasingly incoherent under Ramaphosa's watch. What this incident underscores is the fragility of political language in an interconnected region where history, solidarity, and shared struggles remain deeply woven into national identities. Unlike in the global north, where leaders might spar verbally without lasting consequences, African politics is marked by a delicate balance between unity and rivalry. A single word can rekindle old wounds or unsettle fragile partnerships. For Ramaphosa personally, the question is whether this stupid blunder will be a passing embarrassment or a more lasting stain on his reputation. Supporters insist that his record of diplomacy and problem-solving far outweighs a single mistake. They argue that critics are seizing on the moment to score points, inflating its significance for political gain. Others, however, are not so forgiving. They suggest that the episode reveals deeper cracks in his leadership style, perhaps a man who is increasingly distracted, defensive, and prone to lapses under pressure. In the broader context, the controversy also forces a re-examination of South Africa's role in the region. For decades, Pretoria has been regarded as a big brother to many African states, wielding economic and political clout. But with its own domestic challenges mounting, South Africa's authority is not what it once was. Zimbabwe, though weakened, still commands loyalty from allies who resent South Africa's perceived arrogance. Ramaphosa's remarks could accelerate a shift in regional dynamics, where Pretoria's dominance is increasingly questioned. As the dust settles, one thing is clear: this episode has chipped away at the carefully curated image of Cyril Ramaphosa as a master tactician who rarely falters. It has also reignited debates about how South Africa should conduct itself in relation to its neighbors. Should it play the role of mentor, critic, or equal partner? And can Ramaphosa, after this diplomatic blunder, reclaim the credibility needed to lead that conversation? For now, the president faces a dual challenge: mending fences abroad while convincing his own citizens that his focus remains squarely on solving South Africa's problems. Whether he succeeds or continues to trip over his own words may well determine not only his political future, but also the trajectory of South Africa's regional standing.